The dining room smelled of roasted lamb and my mom's favorite jasmine-scented candles. The table was a mosaic of dishes: mashed potatoes, green beans, a slightly overcooked casserole my aunt swore was rustic, and the clink of wine glasses punctuated the low hum of conversation. It was Mom's 58th birthday, and we were all trying to keep things light, even though family gatherings always had a way of teetering on the edge of chaos. My dad was carving the lamb with the precision of a surgeon. My sister Leela was scrolling through her phone under the table, and my Uncle Ray was halfway through a story about his latest fishing trip. Aunt Carla, as usual, was nodding along while sneaking glances at her watch. I was 32, single, and comfortably numb in my routine as a graphic designer. My family wasn't perfect, but we'd always been functional. No big scandals, no skeletons rattling too loudly in the closet, or so I thought. That night, as the candles flickered and the wine flowed, everything I knew about myself started to unravel. It started innocently enough. Uncle Ray, his cheeks flushed from his second glass of Merlot, was rambling about how I'd always been the serious one in the family. "Even as a kid, Ethan," he said, pointing his fork at me, "you were always so deliberate. Not like Leela running around like a tornado. You were born old, I swear." Everyone chuckled except Mom. She was cutting her lamb into smaller and smaller pieces, her knife scraping the plate with a rhythm that felt too deliberate. I caught her eye expecting a smile, but her face was tight like she was holding her breath. "Born old, huh?" Dad said, trying to keep the mood light. "Guess he got that from me." Uncle Ray snorted. "Nah, you're too much of a softy, Greg. Ethan's got that, what's the word? Gravitas, like he's carrying something heavy." Mom's knife stopped. The scrape, scrape, scrape went silent, and the air in the room shifted. Leela looked up from her phone, sensing the change. Aunt Carla reached for the wine bottle, too quickly, knocking over her glass. It didn't break, but the red liquid spread across the tablecloth like a wound. "Ray," Mom said, her voice low but sharp, "maybe let's not talk about Ethan's childhood tonight." Ray blinked, confused. "What? I'm just saying he was a serious kid." "Nothing wrong with that." "Leave it," Mom said, her eyes fixed on her plate. I frowned. "Mom, it's fine, he's just joking around." She didn't look up. "It's not fine, Ethan." The table went quiet. Dad cleared his throat, but even he seemed unsure how to diffuse this. Leela put her phone down, her usual smirk replaced by a rare look of curiosity. I felt a prickle at the back of my neck, like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't see. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked, keeping my tone light but feeling the weight of her words settle in my chest. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. She set her knife down, her hands trembling slightly. "Nothing," she said, but it was the kind of nothing that carried 1,000 unspoken words. "Carol," Dad said softly, reaching for her hand. She pulled away. Uncle Ray, oblivious as ever, tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Carol, what's the big deal? We're just reminiscing. Remember when Ethan was born? You were so nervous you wouldn't let anyone hold him for weeks." That's when it happened. Mom's head snapped up and her eyes locked onto mine. They weren't angry or sad, they were raw, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You weren't there, Ray," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't know what it was like." The room froze. Aunt Carla's hand hovered over her napkin. Dad's fork clattered onto his plate. Leela's eyes darted between Mom and me, wide and unblinking. "Carol," Dad said, his voice sharper now, "let's not do this." "Do what?" I asked, my heart starting to pound. "What's going on?" Mom's gaze didn't waver. "Ethan," she said, and the way she said my name made my stomach lurch. You weren't born the way you think you were." The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. I laughed because what else could I do? What does that even mean? I wasn't born. What was I delivered by a stork? No one laughed with me. Dad was staring at the table. Aunt Carla was twisting her napkin into knots. Uncle Ray looked like he'd just realized he'd stepped on a landmine. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking now, "what are you talking about?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look away. You're not ours, not biologically." The world tilted. I heard Leela gasp, a small, sharp sound, but it felt miles away. My ears were ringing, and my vision narrowed to Mom's face, her tears spilling over now, her hands gripping the edge of the table like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "What?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. Dad stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Carol, stop, not now. Not like this. When Greg," she snapped, her voice breaking, "when he's 40, when I'm gone, he deserves to know." "Know what?" I said, louder now, my hands clenching into fists. "Someone tell me what the hell is going on." Leela reached for my arm, but I pulled away. Ethan, she said softly, but I shook my head. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. Mom took a shaky breath. You were adopted, Ethan. We couldn't have children, not after Leela. We tried for years, and then we found you. The word adopted hung in the air like a guillotine. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to say it was a mistake, a cruel joke. But she didn't. She just kept looking at me, her face a mix of guilt and love and something I couldn't name. Found me, I repeated, my voice hoarse. What does that mean, found me? Dad sat back down, his shoulders slumping. Ethan, we were going to tell you. We always planned to, but the time never felt right. 32 years, I said, my voice rising. 32 years, and you never found the right time. Ethan, please, Mom said, reaching for me. I flinched, and her hand froze in midair. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. Maybe I should go, he mumbled, but Aunt Carla grabbed his arm, pinning him to his seat. No, I said, my eyes burning. Everyone stays. If this is coming out now, I want the whole damn truth. What do you mean you found me? Mom's tears were falling freely now, but her voice was steady. You were left at a hospital. A nurse called us. She knew we'd been trying to adopt. She said a young woman had come in, gave birth, and left. No name, no records, just you. My mind reeled. I tried to picture it. A faceless woman walking away, leaving me behind like a forgotten suitcase. So you just took me? I asked, my voice breaking. We loved you, Dad said, his voice thick. From the moment we saw you, you were ours. But you lied, I said, the words tasting bitter. My whole life you let me think I was yours. You are ours, Mom said fiercely. Blood doesn't change that. I pushed my chair back, the legs screeching against the floor. I need air, I said, and before anyone could stop me, I was out the door. The backyard was dark, the only light coming from the porch and the faint glow of the city skyline in the distance. I paced, my breath coming in short, angry bursts. Adopted. The word felt like a betrayal, a crack in the foundation of everything I thought I knew. I'd grown up in this house, played in this yard, believed I belonged. Now it felt like a stage, and I'd been playing a role I didn't audition for. I heard the door creak behind me. Leela stepped out, her arms crossed against the chilly night air. You okay? She asked, which was a stupid question, but I didn't snap at her. No, I said, staring at the grass. I don't even know who I am anymore. She stood next to me, close but not touching. You're still you, Ethan. This doesn't change that. I laughed, a harsh, hollow sound. Doesn't it? I don't even know where I came from. Some woman just dumped me, and Mom and Dad decided to play house with me. They love you, she said quietly. You know that? Do I? I turned to face her. They lied, Leela, for years. How do I trust anything they say now? She didn't have an answer, and I didn't expect her to. We stood there in silence, the weight of the revelation pressing down on us both. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions at work, sketching logos and tweaking designs, but my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't stop thinking about that faceless woman, the hospital, the life I might have had if she'd kept me. Was she young? Scared? Did she ever think about me? Did she even care? I avoided my parents' calls. Mom texted me long, tearful messages about how much she loved me, how they'd only wanted to protect me. Dad's messages were shorter, practical. Let's talk, son. We'll figure this out. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Leela was the only one I let in, mostly because she wouldn't take no for an answer. She showed up at my apartment with takeout and a bottle of whiskey, and we sat on my couch, picking at lo mein and passing the bottle back and forth. You gonna look for her? She asked, her voice careful. Who? I said, though I knew exactly who she meant. Your birth mom. I took a long swig of whiskey, letting it burn my throat. I don't know. What if she doesn't want to be found? What if she's, I don't know, a mess? Or worse, what if she's perfect and I'm the one who doesn't measure up? Leela leaned back, her eyes searching mine. You're scared. Of course I'm scared, I snapped. My whole life just got rewritten. What if I dig into this and find something I can't handle? She nodded like she'd expected that. Or what if you find answers? What if you find out who you are? I thought I knew who I was, I said, my voice breaking. She reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. You're still Ethan. You're still my annoying big brother who steals my fries and sucks at karaoke. This is just a new chapter. I wanted to believe her, but the fear was a living thing, clawing at my insides. I spent the next week wrestling with it, torn between wanting to know and wanting to forget. I started searching online, hesitantly at first, looking up adoption records, hospital policies, anything that might give me a clue. Most of it was a dead end. Hospitals didn't keep records of abandoned babies the way they did for formal adoptions. There was no paper trail, no name to chase. But there was one lead, the nurse who'd called my parents. Mom had mentioned her in passing, a woman named Susan who'd worked at St. Mary's Hospital. I didn't know her last name, but it was something. I called the hospital, pretending to be a researcher, and got a curt response. No one named Susan worked in maternity anymore, and they couldn't share personnel records. I wasn't surprised, but it stung. I was about to give up when I found an old article in the local paper's archives, a human interest piece about St. Mary's maternity ward from 1993, the year I was born. It mentioned a nurse, Susan Whittaker, who'd been instrumental in connecting adoptive parents with children in need. There was a grainy photo of a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense smile. My heart raced. This could be her. I tracked down a Susan Whittaker on X, now retired and living in a small town an hour away. I sent her a message, keeping it vague. "I'm researching adoptions from St. Mary's in the early 90s. Can we talk?" To my surprise, she responded within hours, agreeing to meet at a coffee shop. The day of the meeting, I almost backed out. My hands were shaking as I drove, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if she didn't remember? What if she did, and the truth was worse than the uncertainty? Susan was waiting at a corner table, her hair grayer than in the photo, but her eyes just as kind. She smiled as I sat down, but there was a cautious edge to it, like she knew this wasn't just a casual chat. "You're Ethan, right?" she said, her voice warm but direct. "What's this about?" I took a deep breath and told her everything: Mom's bombshell, the hospital, the woman who'd left me. Susan listened, her expression softening as I spoke. When I finished, she leaned back, her fingers tapping the edge of her coffee cup. "I remember you," she said finally. "Not your name, but you were a quiet baby, big eyes, always watching. I knew you'd be okay the moment I saw those eyes." My throat tightened. "Do you know who she was? My birth mother?" Susan's face clouded. "I'm sorry, Ethan, I don't. She came in alone late at night. She was young, maybe 18 or 19, scared. She wouldn't give her name, and she was gone before we could ask more. It wasn't uncommon back then. Hospitals were stricter about privacy, and we didn't push." I nodded, disappointment sinking in. "Did she say anything? Anything at all?" Susan hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a small notebook, its pages yellowed with age. "I kept notes sometimes for my own records. Not official, just memories." She flipped through it, stopping at a page with faded ink. "Here, she didn't say much, but she left a note with you, just one word." She slid the notebook across the table. There in neat handwriting was a single word: "Hope." I stared at it, my vision blurring. Hope. Was that her name? A message? A wish? I didn't know, but it felt like a lifeline, fragile but real. Susan reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "She loved you, Ethan. I saw it in her face. She wasn't ready, but she wanted you to have a chance." I drove home in a daze, the word hope echoing in my mind. I still didn't know who she was, but for the first time I felt a flicker of connection, not just to her but to myself. I wasn't just a kid left behind. I was a choice, a chance, a hope. When I got home, I called Mom. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick with worry. "Ethan, I'm not ready to talk yet," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I'm not going anywhere, I just need time." She started to cry, soft and muffled. "We love you, Ethan, always." "I know," I said, and for the first time since that night I believed it. I'm still searching for answers, but I'm not as afraid anymore. The truth might hurt, but it's mine to find. And maybe, just maybe, hope is a good place to start.